In 1590, James went across the sea to pick up his new bride, Anne of Denmark. And during that voyage, there was an enormous storm that was cooked up. And in Denmark, the authorities decided that this had been produced by a coven of witches, and there was a series of witch hunts and trials and accusations and later executions. And this seems to have had a great impact on James, who spent about 6 months of his life in Denmark learning about witchcraft hunting in Denmark. So much so that when he came home, a coven of witches was accused of starting the storm in conjunction with the Danish witches, and therefore the very first witch hunt in Scotland began. And this was in 1590, and it ran for about 3 years, and approximately 100 people were executed, a particularly traumatic time in Scottish history. The interesting thing is that James took this very, very, very personally, and he actually acted as the interrogator in several of these cases, particularly Agnes Sampson, who was one of the accused witches, who is reputed to have whispered into his ear the words that his bride had said to him on his wedding night. Anyway, she obviously met an extremely unpleasant end. And these witch trials rumbled on for about 3 years, and James himself anonymously published a book about them called News from Scotland. However, there was a number of what you might call satanic plots, as they were perceived, against James during the 1590s. There was the Bothwell plot, which was to do with a power play between him and his cousin. And Bothwell was repeatedly accused of witchcraft and stirring up problems, not just during the North Berwick period, but also later on in the 1590s. And then a very strange plot in 1600 called the Gowrie plot, where James was attracted away from the hunt with a very small number of retainers by the Earl of Ruthven and taken into a small tower where he was told he was going to see some treasure that had recently been uncovered. And then an assassin sprang out and tried to stab him, and James fought him off. And when the assassin was pinned to the ground, he was found to have certain sort of demonic ciphers about his person. It all sounds completely crazy, and I'm sure it was, and nobody's ever really got to the bottom of what was actually going on there. But it seems to have been, again, a power play between James and one of his aristocrats that went on in a very conspiratorial manner to this accusation of magic formulas being on the body of the assassin. So James is a man that is very, very connected to witches and the witch hunts. He also wrote this tremendous tract called the Demonology, where he wrote down how people should go about hunting witches and what measures should be taken and how to identify witches. So this is a king who's now twice written about witches, firstly in News from Scotland and then in Demonology, which was reprinted when he came to the throne of England. Also, the year after he came to the throne, a law was passed which made it punishable by death to try and bring down the person of the king using witchcraft.